obsessed with you, but you'll never work me out. I get a little jealous, a little selfish. You know that it's all good. I'm just a little messed up. Ooh, I'm just a little messed up like you. No, I never felt this. Love how you built this. I'm gonna tear it down. I'm just a little messed up. Ooh, I'm just a little messed up like you. Messed up. I'm just a little messed up like you.
Okay, I'm still getting used to all of this. Maybe we'll figure out transition stuff between screens eventually. But for now, this is how it's going to go. So the last stream that I did ended up cutting out unexpectedly because we lost internet for a bit. And we just decided to not even bother with finishing the stream and just going to bed because we were tired anyway. So, just going to...
Hey, are you there?
Oh my god, that was loud. I apologize. I don't like this new streaming setup, but it's going to have to do.
There? Are you okay? Ooh, I forgot that was a trigger.
Recently, I came across a whole bunch of YouTubers outing TikTokers who have been faking certain illnesses and disorders.
Do you have any proof of that, though? That they are faking? That is my first question. Also, I would like to quickly state, do not attack or harass any of the people in these videos. This is for educational purposes to correct misinformation and reduce the stigma against DID.
Tourette syndrome and ADHD. Well, one of the ones that got me really interested was the fact that people were being accused of faking DID, which used to be called multiple personality disorder and is now called dissociative identity disorder.
So I'm not sure where the stream cut out last time, but it is dissociative identity disorder, not disassociative identity disorder. To disassociate is to separate yourself from something. So if you are, for example, working with a brand and find out that that brand is not great, then you would disassociate yourself from them.
Whenever I doubt that I actually have DID, I just remind myself that I used to purposefully make myself dissociate before I went to my job as a cashier, so that I felt like somebody else was doing my job instead of me.
I've gone on a bit of a deep dive and went looking to see.
So I do want to quickly comment on just that small video. I believe we've seen it before, but it is possible to dissociate without having DID. And you can dissociate without having a dissociative disorder.
See what some of these TikToks were about. Now that first one I showed, the person has to remind themselves that they have the disorder.
It's not reminding themselves that they have the disorder. It's saying, I am fake claiming myself for whatever reason. Every system that we have ever known or spoken to has done this, including us. We fake claim ourselves constantly because it is a defense mechanism. The purpose of DID is to remain hidden. Obviously, there are overt systems, which are just as valid as covert systems, but the disorder is mostly covert. I've been dissociating all day. This is frustrating. But when you find out that you have DID, your immediate reaction is going to be, there's no way, this is not real, I'm making it up. And that is something that will follow you throughout your healing journey. It honestly will. Because to have DID means that you went through such severe and repeated trauma that your brain could not handle it. And your brain thought that you were going to die if you had stayed aware of it. So it is a lot of coming to terms with, I have trauma, this actually happened, this is what's happening, all of these symptoms that I've been experiencing are part of this disorder. I know for a lot of systems, if they have alters that get front stuck, or they don't switch as often, they will end up fake claiming themselves because they think, oh, well, I must have just been pretending, which is not at all the case. It is so incredibly common for systems to fake claim themselves, so it's not reminding yourself that you have DID, it's understanding and telling yourself that you actually have the disorder and that it's real and your experiences are real, even though you feel like it cannot be real.
Now, to me, that's crazy. I've never known anyone that had to remind themselves that they had a disorder because they've got the disorder. So what actually is dissociative identity disorder? DID is a mental health condition. If you're living with DID, it means you have two or more separate identities. These personalities control your behaviour at different times. Each identity has its own personal history, traits, likes and dislikes. Yeah, according to this YouTuber who says they hate likes and dislikes.
DID can lead to gaps in memory and hallucinations, believing something is real when it isn't. I'm going to say straight off the bat that that is an incorrect definition of hallucinations. That sounds more like something with psychosis or delusions. Hallucinations are seeing, hearing, experiencing things that are not actually there. So I think that it's a very vague and misleading definition to put that there.
Each identity has its own personal history, traits, likes and dislikes. Yeah, according to this YouTuber who says they have a dissociative identity disorder, it's more like this.
You ever dissociate so hard that you just like feel like you're a different person, you know?
And this.
Today is gonna be one of those days where my brain just doesn't hit record.
So it's a POV. It may be their experience, it may not be their experience. But that is very common experiences for systems to go through before they realize that they are a system. Because a lot of times, and especially with DID and with amnesia, your brain will automatically fill in those gaps to make it seem like you don't have amnesia. And you won't realize until you look back later and be like, I don't remember any of this period of time.
You know, like you're conscious and you're there the whole time, and then afterwards you know that the day happened and that you experienced it, but you just don't remember any of it.
That, what they just described there, is known as, I believe, gray out amnesia, which is where it's not immediate amnesia. You remember it in the moment, and then as time goes by, it will literally just fade and you won't remember any of it.
Now, according to the experts, because I do a bit of Google research, this is also very true. We all disassociate at some level. In a mild form of disassociation, where we may lose touch with conscious awareness of our immediate surroundings, examples include getting lost in a film or a book, or when we forget where we placed our keys, or when we may have had a traumatic experience. What this...
Yes, everyone can dissociate. DID is just a very, very extreme level of it.
person has described can actually happen to anyone and isn't really part of a disassociated...
It can happen to anyone, but if it's happening frequently, then that is something that should be looked into more, because it's not normal for it to be happening frequently. If it happens once in a blue moon, very infrequently, very rarely, that is normal. If it's happening frequently, often, daily, that is absolutely not normal.
identity disorder. But she also says other things that, to me, just could be put down to normal attributes that a lot of people actually have.
The ADHD is wild. Sometimes I'll have like 5 trains of thought going and none of them feel like they're mine. And then sometimes my brain is just so radio silent it almost hurts, you know? Like I can't even hear my own thoughts. No, it's like I'm one person, obviously, but it's like there's different versions of me, you know, like different flavors of me that come out during different circumstances, and sometimes just whenever. I have no idea why I bought this necklace. It is not even remotely my style. My family tells me that when I was a little kid, I would act like a wolf sometimes, and I would like refuse to go by my name, and they had to call me Wolfie, and I don't...
Now, something else I found very interesting.
So this person who uploaded this video doesn't describe or explain why those would be normal experiences that everyone has. Obviously, if you have a few of those, then it is probably normal, but if you are having a lot of symptoms all throughout your life that continue into adulthood, that is disrupting your normal day-to-day life, that is not normal.
Is the disorder is so rare that it actually only affects 0.01 to 1% of people.
That is very incorrect, and they do not provide their sources, but that is very incorrect. That may have been correct when people were first diagnosing the disorder. but DID affects around 1 to 3% of the population. It is more common than schizophrenia, just as common as bulimia. It's about the same percentage of people that have red hair. And that is only the diagnosed people with DID. It does not account for OSDD, and it does not account for undiagnosed systems. Childhood trauma is not a rare thing, unfortunately. In a perfect world, DID would not exist. It also says it can occur at any age. That is also incorrect. So this is not... The source is not accurate. DID cannot develop after your personality integrates at around the ages of 7 to 9. You need to have severe prolonged trauma in childhood before the ages of 7 to 9, disorganized attachments to your primary caregivers, and an inherent ability to dissociate to very high levels. If all those things are true, then there is a chance that you can develop DID, but it cannot occur at any age. Once the personality fully integrates from ego states into a full personality, you cannot develop DID.
In the world. But if you look on TikTok, it certainly seems to be a lot more. Have a look at this. And not only are there so many people with this disorder on TikTok, there's also actually quite a few couples.
So if you are going on TikTok and deliberately looking for people with DID, then you are going to get people with DID. It's like being surprised that there are cows on a cow farm. And obviously there are going to be couples who one of them or both of them have DID, because people with DID are just normal people. We just have a disorder that affects our day-to-day life. That does not mean that we cannot get into relationships and have families, have very fulfilling lives.
That both have the disorder on TikTok. Have a look at this.
Hey, who's fronting?
So I think she got confused because only, I believe the pronunciation is Gianu. Only the Gianu system has DID. Their husband does not.
Jay.
Yeah. Hey, who's fronting?
Look.
Hey, who's fronting?
Say a pity.
And just so you know, it wasn't when he walked in the door.
Nope.
So,
Definitely not.
yeah, we switched.
So to me, it just seemed very strange that they could actually act exactly the same, and they actually had quite a few more clips of them.
They were not acting the same. If you pay attention, you can tell there are differences in body language, some differences in the tone of which they speak, of their speaking patterns, and those are only short, small clips. So you don't see everything. And that is also their husband, who lives with them and goes through life with them, who knows them.
Doing the exact same thing, and that doesn't seem to be the norm of the disorder. why would people want to go on TikTok and pretend they have a disorder? Could it maybe be for attention, likes, views and stuff? Have a look at these TikTokers and tell me that it doesn't look like they're doing it for attention.
I love having DID because I'm like, I never know what I look like. And then I look in a mirror or my phone screen and I'm like, what the fuck? You're emo.
4 DID systems hanging out at once challenge. No one have any littles out. Impossible.
I can feel it coming. Guess the player.
Just none of those things seem real to me.
Just because it doesn't seem real to you does not mean that it isn't real. DID is a very complex disorder. You only see what people decide to show online. You cannot tell if someone's faking by a 15-second TikTok video. Some systems decide to show their switches. I know that we've switched on streams before. When we had TikTok, we did have videos where we would switch. Other people with DID sometimes show their switches, some don't. I know that the reason that we show them is, one, because if we're on stream we can't exactly choose to not have that happen. And we can't choose to just cut that out because it's a live stream. We could go back and edit it out after, but we don't. And it's also for normalizing it, because it is just another symptom of having DID. It's something that we experience every day. Some systems won't experience it every day. We have a friend who also has DID who only switches every few days or a week or even longer.
One person saying I actually like having the disorder. Somebody else with a group of 4 people with the disorder having a great time. I wouldn't have thought that the disorder was great to live with myself.
It's not a great disorder to live with, but that doesn't mean that we have to be miserable all the time. Also, I apologize if you can hear the fan in the background. It is like an oven in our room, so we have a fan on our floor that goes constantly, along with our ceiling fan. This disorder is not fun, but it doesn't mean that it always has to be miserable. There are positive things about the disorder. The disorder itself is not positive, and I would not wish it on my worst enemy, because it is horrible, it's dark, it comes with so many comorbid disorders, chronic pain, chronic illnesses, PTSD symptoms, because it is a trauma disorder, so everyone with DID also has CPTSD, which comes with flashbacks, avoidance of people and places and things, and I don't know if it's common in a lot of systems, but for us, we have had nightmares pretty much every night since we were very, very young. We can't remember the last time that we had a positive dream. And we went long periods of our life dreading going to sleep, trying to stay awake for as long as possible just to avoid having nightmares. not all alters will get along. We have an alter in our system named Mari, whose job is just an internal conflict manager. Her job is to just break up fights between alters. That's literally her job. She's constantly busy. There is so much trauma that goes into having DID. But that doesn't mean that we should have to continue being miserable. We've been hurt enough. People with DID have been hurt enough to just develop the disorder. We've been traumatized enough. We've gone through that. We've survived it. That does not mean that we should still have to constantly have to be just surviving instead of living. It does not mean that we should have to always be in some sort of trauma state, or always be having flashbacks, or always being miserable. We deserve to live just as much as anyone else without the disorder. Just because it is a dark disorder does not mean that there are not positives about it, that there are not good times in our life. And by saying that you think that nobody with the disorder should be happy, because you watched a 15-second TikTok video of people with DID being happy and immediately claiming them as faking the disorder, that is incredibly harmful.
But the person actually showing the in and out of personalities seemed very dramatic and just not real to me.
Switches can be very dramatic. Switches can vary in appearance from system to system, alter to alter, depending on if there were any triggers going on, depending on what the environment is like, depending on communication between alters. It can be very dramatic and take a long time, or it can be very quick and very subtle.
It turns out on TikTok there's a huge thing called self-diagnosis. And what that means is it seems perfectly alright to read a few things on Google and self-diagnose yourself.
That is not what self-diagnosis is. That is what a lot of people seem to assume self-diagnosis is. Self-diagnosis is a very valid form of diagnosis, especially if you are not white, not male, if you live in the United States, where we don't have universal health care. Getting a diagnosis and being taken seriously can be very, very difficult. It can take a lot of time and be very expensive. And for some people it can be very unsafe, especially if they are still in an abusive situation. A lot of people assume that self-diagnosing is looking at a few TikToks and going, oh, that sounds like me, I have this now. Self-diagnosis is months to years of research, and not just research, but paying attention to yourself and your own symptoms, and talking to other people with the disorder, and just figuring things out. It is not a quick thing. It is not something you can do in a day or even a week. It takes months and sometimes years to gain all the knowledge that you need in order to say, I think I have this. And for a lot of people, self-diagnosis is the first step to getting a professional diagnosis. Because if you have an idea of your symptoms, of your experiences, you can easily go to a doctor when you are able to, and if you are able to, and say, this is what I'm experiencing. I think it lines up a lot with this. What do you think? It's not demanding that a professional gives you a diagnosis because of your self-diagnosis. It's just another step.
There are a lot of people that agree with it. And I'm sure, look, I'm not saying that there's nobody in the world with DID. I understand that, yes, there is 0.01 to 1% of people that have DID. But these people are self-diagnosing themselves.
I want y'all to listen up and listen well. I was fortunate enough to attend a panel with some of the leading researchers in dissociative identity disorder. They are the top of the field experts in dissociative disorders. And the topic of that panel was self-diagnosis and social media. And they showed video examples of TikToks of people with self-diagnosed DID. But for all of those videos they showed, do you want to know how many they looked at and said this person's faking? 0.
Look through the comment section.
I believe that that video that they were referring to was the McLean video, which did a lot of damage to the community, to the individual systems that were shown in that video. It was overall incredibly damaging and only added to the stigma. And I know that some of the systems that were shown in that video have been receiving targeted harassment ever since.
On this video, and there's a lot of people in agreement that self-diagnosis is totally fine. I did find something where there was a forum where they talked about how that the fact that there's lots of people faking Tourette's on TikTok has increased people having these tics that aren't really part of Tourette's but are very similar to tics that people are seeing on TikTok, each by TikTokers who do not have Tourette's and are faking their tics. Proof in point, the fact is, experts say that people with DID can have up to 100.
I would really, really like to see your sources for this, because this is incredibly incorrect, and I'm going to link our Google Doc in the pinned comment of the VOD on our YouTube of this video. I know that I did not say that in the stream last time, but it is still in the pinned comment on that VOD, and our YouTube should be linked on our profile. But we have a mass list of sources for a whole bunch of reasons that people will fake claim systems. You can have much more than 100 alters. There is no limit. And I know that in the Google Doc we link one of the most well-known cases of a woman with DID who has, I believe, 2.5 thousand alters. And I'm sure there are systems with even more. But that is what we found because that was the most recorded. There's also no core identity that is a very, very outdated theory. The most up-to-date and accepted theory is the theory of structural dissociation, where you are born with separate ego states. One for, like, being hungry, one for being in pain, things like that. And at around the ages of 7 to 9, after you have started having life experiences and learning about yourself and the world around you, those ego states will integrate into one personality. After that happens, you cannot develop DID. A lot of the sources that this person seems to be using are very, very incorrect. And it's kind of concerning that they don't link their sources in the description. There's no pinned comments with sources. No sources are linked at all.
Alter egos, but this TikToker, on the other hand, has over 300 alter egos, and
They are also not alter egos. Alters is short for alternate states of identity or alternate states of consciousness. It is a completely separate person in your brain who has completely different memories and life experiences. It's not an alter ego. An alter ego is something like a superhero would have. Their normal person, their normal day-to-day job, and then as a superhero, that would be their alter ego. It's not, alters are not alter egos.
counting. Just curious, who's counting all these alter egos?
There are ways to count how many alters you have in your system. For example, a lot of external communication will involve taking notes, writing in journals. There are different apps for systems where you can put in different members and count that way. Also, gatekeepers in some systems can have more of an understanding and accurate count of how many alters there are in the system.
We've gotten past 300. But I'm going to leave you with this last TikTok clip, and you can make your own decision on whether you think these TikTokers are faking the fact that they have DID. You're really joking at a time like
Okay, I'm not even going to start this next one. That is for a different day. Because that 8-minute video took 45 minutes to get through. The reason that I do these videos is not to target any of these people, but it's to bring awareness to the fact that many people completely misunderstand the disorder. They don't do enough research, they don't talk to people with it. They just see a 15-second TikTok, and if it does not fit their perception of normal or acceptable, then they will immediately call it fake, which is incredibly harmful. And it is even more harmful when you don't do any of your research and then post videos like this using outdated sources, false information, just spreading misinformation to your audience, because that person had over 1,000 subscribers. So that is potentially 1,000 plus people who could see that video and assume that what they are saying about DID is what it is, when it is not. But I'm going to end stream here. We need to get back into streaming more often because our vocal cords are not very happy right now. And we're dissociating. I apologize for all of the dissociation through this stream. And I will be linking our Google Doc with all of our sources in the pinned comment of the VOD on YouTube. And our YouTube should be linked on our Twitch profile. But thank you everyone for joining. We are still working on trying to figure out this new setup. Hopefully by next stream it will be a little bit better. I hope you all have a lovely day or night. Hydrate, take your meds, stretch. Make sure that you eat something and get some sleep. Thank you for watching.